everyone. You've made it to the end. So just to engage you, I will begin with a task for you. Think about whether when you were young, you thought that you wanted to be one of these professions. And once you've answered that, think about whether you still want to become one of these. As for me, the first answer is yes, and the second is no. And it's understandable because we change, expectations change, and circumstances change. Well, for me, I wanted to become a police officer. And rather than the desire to help people, it was probably because of the Navy outfit, but that doesn't matter. What matters is why I so quickly gave up on that dream, and why so many of us do. Now, after that, I thought that maybe I could become a writer, because I really love to write, and I think I'm actually quite good at it. And mind that I was 8 years old here, when I told, my family, my friends, that this is my plan, they all told me, but that is not a real job. That can be your hobby, that cannot be your career. So I thought grown-ups knew better, so I abandoned that thought altogether. Next, I thought I was more mature, so I combined the two, and I thought I would be a journalist, because it's sort of writing, but it's more professional, right? Well, I heard voices saying, you would have to work for the New York Times to make a penny out of that. And, well, you won't earn enough to make a sufficient living. So that dream landed in the trash, too. But why? Why do we let go of our dreams so quickly before we even try them? Now, I can bet right here, right now, that each one of you have heard this sentence. What plans do you have for your future? At least once. And you didn't answer. Because, well, maybe you were scared of being pushed in a certain unwanted direction. Maybe you simply didn't know, or maybe you were scared of being judged. And this question seems quite innocent, but there's an actual problem with how our society has decided to shape our ideas of success and how it impacts how we make our decision. Think about it. Have you ever sat down to think whether the choice you are making right now has been really set by you? And I'm not here to simplify making this crucial decision. And I do not want to sweet talk you into thinking that you should do what you like, that you should follow your dreams. But I think that you should make your decision consciously, with knowing what impacts can influence it, subconsciously. Now, first, the Cambridge definition of success is the achieving of the results wanted or hoped for. But I'm going to be focusing on success in the career-shaping and academic context, just for clarity. And I thought that I would begin with money, because I think that it is the easiest argument to abolish. I think of money as something conventional, because it's easier for us to say that, well, I have to choose this because I have to earn a sufficient amount, rather than stand out, than risk failing, right? And once we choose a job in which it is maybe easier, maybe more probable for us to earn more, money becomes a shield, a justification for not wanting to sacrifice our comfort. And there's been a study conducted by Gallup in 2013 in which he surveyed 230,000 employees. And he created two groups, poor and rich. And I'm also going to be using this vocabulary because it was the one in the study. Now, 63% of the poor people said that they were completely unhappy with their jobs. 80% did not really like their jobs. And 86% really liked what they did for a living. Moreover, 7% of the rich people absolutely loved what they did. And what is interesting, that the 7% had a higher combined salary than the 86% combined two, which only liked what they did for a living. So the company came to a quite easy conclusion, right? The more people love their jobs, the quicker they get rich. And, well, the world revolves around money. And we tend to stress that, well, money doesn't buy happiness. But obviously, in some way, it does. It depends what car we drive, where we vacation, what food we eat. But according to well-being expert Geetha Nadeem, money only correlates with our happiness to a certain point. And a point, how much we earn. Now, this point isn't millions of dollars. This is slightly above an average salary. And above that, money doesn't yield our happiness at all. So why do we imagine ourselves sitting on piles of money if it doesn't even give us anything, any advantage, right? Next, I wanted to talk about our personal background, so our socioeconomic status. Now this may be quite a controversial topic, but well, it does touch upon us all, right? So people with a higher profile think, what if I don't do what my parents want to do? What if I don't use up their money and choose a path and then I will lose it all? People from other backgrounds have a different problem. They face challenges, which then affect their self-esteem and their ability to pursue their goals. But both of these groups think, what if I waste an opportunity I've been given and regret it later? And there are 3 ways in which we can escape this cycle. And the first one is losing the mindset of obligation. Because your dreams are your dreams, not your parents'. So instead, take those opportunities and transform them. Transform them into a way which aligns with your vision. The second part is, you do not have to take everything and risk failing with, for example, all your financial belongings. That's not true. It takes one step at a time. Make a plan. It isn't all or nothing. And the third part is, shift from survival to sustainability. Because now more than ever, we have access to so many opportunities, so many resources, internships, that it doesn't cost a penny. It costs hard work and determination. But it's a question to you. Are you willing to take advantage of what is out there? And another factor that has been proven by multiple studies that has a significant impact on our decision-making is peer pressure. And you may think, well, I won't let my friends decide what I will do with my future. But it is almost 90% subconscious, and we only later come to the realization what had happened. So maybe we see our friends reaching for a high-profile career, so we say, well, we can't do something less prestigious than that. Maybe we see a group of our friends which chose something in a similar area, a similar field, and we say, if they all chose that is right, then they must be correct. Maybe we are in a very competitive school environment. Maybe our friend group is highly competitive, and we subconsciously choose a more rigorous career, a more hard one than we would want. Or we tell our friends that we want something maybe more unconventional, out of the ordinary. And obviously they laugh at us and they say that, you're going to end up at McDonald's. So we lose the vision. But falling under pressure is easy. What is difficult and what signifies strength is standing up and becoming self-confident. And this isn't about stepping out of your comfort zone, because nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. It's about stretching the borders of where you feel comfortable. And now, maybe your friend is choosing something just because they're actually talented, gifted. Maybe it is a good choice for them, right? But maybe it's because, I don't know, their dad told them that they had to choose that. Maybe it's because they want to do something they're quite familiar with and they're scared of something else. But that is their path. The best way to predict your future is to create it. But how can you foresee your future if you're standing behind someone else? It's simply impossible. And now I wanted to talk about something also very important, which is cultural norms and expectations. And here I wanted to introduce to you the term self-stereotyping. Now, self-stereotyping is behaving in a way which aligns with our self-views. And according to Mac Heelan's theory, lack of fit theory, we tend to, both men and women, by comparison, predict how our performance would look like in a certain position or role. Now, men opt for engineering, technology, math fields, while women are more likely to choose social fields and are less likely to seek leadership positions. And, well, I also experienced this. As I told you in the very beginning, I wanted to become a police officer, but I thought, but they would probably need, for example, someone stronger to stop a thief, or someone with more authority. And on the surface, this may look like self-awareness, but it is self-stereotyping. And self-stereotyping not only leads to lesser performance, but also lack of motivation. And some steps to overcome it are, for example, self-assessment, self-reflection, or seeking feedback. And it's similar with cultural norms, because society has established some jobs which are real, right? And we want to be respected, obviously. But shouldn't we be respected for actually doing something good and being good at something, putting something good into the world? Shouldn't we be respected for doing something that we feel makes us complete, instead of wearing a label of what society deems to be reputable? Why did we let society make the decision? What is a real job? Why did we let them set the standards? And coming back to the very beginning. Now, when you were this tall, did you really care what would happen if you didn't wear what your parents told you to wear, or if you didn't eat what your parents told you to eat? I don't think so. So why start now? Why start now when you're finally capable of making a decision, a rational decision on your own? When you were this tall, did you imagine your future and you were sitting in some room alone on piles of money? I can speak for myself. I wasn't. I was doing something I love, with people I love. When you were this tall and you thought, I will be a princess, you were scared that some older people would judge you, or that you would be a failure in it. You didn't, because you didn't think about all of those previously mentioned factors which influence how we make our decisions. And while we were kids, we didn't know how the world works, but we didn't let what we knew, such as our parents being able to punish us for not doing what they wanted us to do, or no money equaling no presents. We didn't let that affect our dreams. So, picture this. What you, after self-reflection, think is the best thing you could do with your future, and what your younger self thought would be a dream come true and would make you happy. Merge that, and that is your picture of success. Thank you.